The actor and martial artist Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times," which is an adage that speaks on the power of specialization in a skill or practice, and how someone who might not be able to do a lot of things can still impress by doing one thing better than anyone else. And that is also a statement that fits perfectly for the terrified and timid future Thunder Pillar himself, Zenitsu Agatsuma. This video contains spoilers for Kimetsu no Yaiba up to the current arc of the manga as of this video's release, so if you aren't caught up and don't want to be spoiled, this is your warning. Zenitsu Agatsuma is one of the three leading characters for Kimetsu no Yaiba, and on the outside, he appears to be nothing more than a cowardly character riddled with low self-esteem and fear, even convincing himself that he's unskilled and useless when it comes to his job as a demon slayer, when in reality, he's actually among one of the strongest characters in the series, especially one of the strongest of the three leads. I'd even go so far to say that among the three main leads, he's probably the most viable when it comes to picking the next pillar for the demon slaying organization. Well, at least if he survives this current arc. Though, before we get too into that, let's discuss the meaning behind his name and his character. Zenitsu Agatsuma is a strange name for a strange person that actually fits quite well with his goals in life and his motivation as a character. Starting first with his family name, Agatsuma, which when broken down means my wife, and plays well narratively with Zenitsu because the reason that he's part of the Demon Slaying Corp is all thanks to his ex-wife's death. So you could say that his role in the story is all thanks to his wife, but it also matches up well with his goals of finding a wife, as Zenitsu is a bit of a skirt chaser. But he isn't like that for no reason, as before the events of Kimetsu no Yaiba, Zenitsu had basically nothing. He was an orphan that no one cared for, so he grew up looking for someone who would take care of him the same way that he would take care of them, which is unfortunately how he met his fiancée, an unnamed woman with an unknown debt that tricks Zenitsu into eloping with her, and soon he would find himself giving away all of his money to her, inheriting her own debt, and then she ran away with another man, all the while getting their marriage annulled, so he basically walked away with nothing but more debt over his head. And this history is what makes Zenitsu so desperate in finding a woman that he can marry and settle down with, which is why he gets so frustrated when he sees other people so nonchalant around women, as they do not realize to him what a blessing that is, because as he sees it, to have someone to hold and treat you well is a luxury greater than anyone else could know. Also, given the fact that he's looking for someone to take care of him is possibly the reason why he found himself so easily connecting with Tanjiro, as Tanjiro is a person who tries his hardest to make sure the least amount of people get hurt, Zenitsu seeing him as a bit of a crutch before he's able to stand on his own. Then of course you have his given name, Zenitsu, which when broken down is the combination of the kanji for virtue and or good, and that of flee and or hide, which matches up well with Zenitsu's character, since even though he is a pretty cowardly person and tries to run away and hide a lot thanks to the paranoia that he's developed over years of being alone and having no one to rely on, he ultimately at the end of the day is trying his best to do good. We even see this when he defends Tanjiro's box from Inosuke with his life. We also see that the name is fitting thematically with Zenitsu's crouching moron hidden badass character trope, as due to Zenitsu's cowardly mentality, he is constantly paranoid and unable to act, because he keeps overthinking things like his own mortality and undermining his own skill level. And when that stress finally builds up and overwhelms Zenitsu's own mind, he will pass out. And in this passed out state, he finds his mind clear, and he's able to move and act with the skill and might that he is actually capable of. So, because he metaphorically flees into his own mind, he is able to do good. Though you might ask yourself why someone as cowardly as Zenitsu would even continue doing his job as a demon slayer, since it's very dangerous. Well, it's all because if he didn't, he feels like he would let down one of the most important people in his life, his Gramps, quote-unquote. Not actually Zenitsu's grandfather, he's actually a former Thunder Pillar who saved Zenitsu from the debt of his former wife, and basically becoming Zenitsu's only real family. Though saving Zenitsu didn't come cheap. In fact, Zenitsu was now indebted to the old man, and the way he paid this off was the old man took him in and began to teach him the ways of the Breath of the Thunder style demon slaying technique, in an attempt to pass on this former pillar's own teachings. And this demon slaying technique is actually a really powerful one. It's a style that focuses specifically on channeling strength into the user's legs and attacking with quick and sudden bursts, leaving even demons in awe of its speed and power, much like that of thunder and lightning. And users of this style get their own very unique Nichiren shape, with the blade becoming a beautiful golden color and having a crack of lightning lining the back of the blade. And this design actually looks a lot like kintsugi, which is a Japanese repair method where you mend an area or a breakage on some sort of vase or pot or bowl with lacquer dust mixed with powdered gold, treating the damaged part of the object as its history, making it more valuable for that history, which is a design that fits quite perfectly with Zenitsu as a character, because even though those hardships in his life turn him into a bit of a paranoid coward, without them he wouldn't be the man that he is today. Though to say that Zenitsu struggled with his training is a bit of an understatement. He struggled to get down even the very basics of the style that he was trying to learn, and one day, during his training, Zenitsu climbed a tree to get away from his Gramps, as he feared he may die training too hard. And while up there, letting loose a sad pent-up long spiel about how he feels like he's gonna let everyone down and how everyone he loves is gonna give up on him, a bolt of lightning strikes Zenitsu. This lightning, much like the kintsugi, changes Zenitsu permanently, turning his natural black hair into that of golden hair, but most importantly, from this point on, Zenitsu is actually able to pick up and master one of the katas. You might even consider that lightning bolt a blessing from the Thunder God themselves. And over time, Zenitsu would work on this one single kata, developing it to an utter perfection, taking this single attack and forging his body and his movement around getting the most out of it that he could. And this kata that he picked up is Breath of the Thunder's first style, Thunder Clap and Flash, or loosely translated to Thunder Bolt and Flash, which is a simple attack that has the user dash forward and slice a target with incredible speed. The namesake for this attack is actually very simple, as it is basically just describing that of a thunderbolt, with first comes the lightning in a split second unleashing a powerful force, then comes the thunder, an echo of the attack's aftermath. This breathing style is also imitating a real-life martial arts called Ayajitsu, which is a sword fighting style that is designed to utilize a katana's quick draw capabilities to its fullest. And while most of the attacks in Ayajitsu are reactionary, the style is also useful for those who wish to surprise a target with a quick and clean slice. And speaking of fighting styles that focus on katana play, I mentioned before how Zenitsu only was ever able to master a single kata from the 6 katas in the Breath of the Thunder, which would be quite underwhelming for most people if he didn't work to make the Thunder Clap and Flash the strongest it possibly could be, and he did so by thinking of the attack much like forging that of a katana. You must fold the metal and hammer out imperfections. Thus, Zenitsu introduced the Thunder Clap and Flash's multi-fold technique, which the folds themselves are just Zenitsu repeating the dash of the Thunder Clap and Flash multiple times in rapid succession to build up speed and reach a target while dodging any obstacles in his way, arriving at his target at his attack's fullest speed for maximum damage. And speaking of full speed, Zenitsu also created his own movement options, this being Godspeed. Godspeed is a movement ability created by Zenitsu developed to boost his speed and power when it comes to striking with his Thunder Clap and Flash, allowing him to go beyond the normal limits of the attack. And the way he does this is while in full focus, he puts all of his energy and power into his legs and kicks off, which pushes him beyond his normal human limits. And because this goes beyond his normal limits, Zenitsu is only able to do this twice per day before his legs just completely give out. And much like Thunder Clap and Flash, the name Godspeed is very simple. It's to give you the idea that Zenitsu is in fact a god of speed himself, putting him on a whole other level above his friends. His attack name places him in the role of that said god or deity, moving at speeds equal to thunder and lightning, making him even faster than most demons' enhanced senses can track. And it was through all these additions to Thunder Clap and Flash that Zenitsu was able to do something that only a pillar has been shown to do before. He created his own addition to the Breath of the Thunder style. this coming in the form of Breath of the Thunder's 7th style, Burning Thunder God. And this attack blends together everything that Zenitsu has learned through his training. He dashes forward at full Godspeed and strikes with the force of a Thunder God, even being accompanied by the Thunder Beast itself in the strike. Now the name for this style is actually rather interesting, starting first with the fact that what we're meant to take away from the name Burning Thunder God is that Zenitsu has become one with the Thunder God Raijin themselves. In this attack, he is the Thunder God in a metaphorical sense, since he has mastered thunder breathing to such a point that he is creating attacks, and the beast that accompanies him visually appears to be Raiju, the beast of thunder that accompanies Raijin on his journeys, thus putting Zenitsu in the role of Raijin, the god of thunder. Then of course you have how this attack blends together not only what Zenitsu has learned by himself, but what he's picked up from his friends Tanjiro and Inosuke. Not only do you have the addition of flame to the name of the attack, showing that Tanjiro has influenced him in some way and given him confidence to stand up for himself, but the beast that is accompanying Zenitsu is also giving off the same raw primal energy as his friend Inosuke, which this aspect of the attack's name is reinforced by the cover of the chapter that the attack debuts in, putting Zenitsu's own journey up against that of his classmate in thunder-breathing style, Kaigaku, who also was the inspiration for Zenitsu to create the 7th style so that he could fight alongside him as equals, as Kaigaku, unlike Zenitsu, was able to master every thunder-breathing style outside of the 1st style, so they were sort of peas in a pod, and thus it's ironic that the style that was invented to fight side by side with him ended up being the attack that ultimately took his life. But why were these two students fighting? Well, you see, Kaigaku decided to throw away his humanity and become a demon, which brought shame to the Thunder Pillar style and ultimately resulted in Zenitsu's gramps, Jingoro Kuwajima, the former Thunder Pillar of the Demon Slaying Corps, to commit ritual suicide without a spotter, ending his life in an excruciatingly painful and embarrassingly shameful way. And when Zenitsu learns about this tragedy, we see the normal, cowardly, and timid boy harden, and anger fills his body, and he's able to fight fully conscious with his full power. And when he does this, Zenitsu shows how terrifyingly powerful he really is, handily defeating an Upper Moon Demon by himself in a single hit, which is actually one of the requirements for becoming a pillar in the Demon Slaying Corps. Though Kaigaku did land some good hits on Zenitsu during their fight, leaving his soul in a near-death state, resting on the realm between life and death, held in place by the spider lilies of the afterlife. But it was here that Zenitsu got to see his gramps one last time. Across the river he spoke, Zenitsu apologizing that he couldn't find common ground with Kaigaku, but instead of getting scolded like he expected, Jigoro tells Zenitsu how proud he is of him, and how much he's grown as a person, which are the words that Zenitsu always wanted to hear. And speaking of hearing, Zenitsu's character is actually very strongly connected to sound and hearing, as Zenitsu has a very keen sense of hearing, very similar to the sound pillar Tengen. Not only is he able to detect danger from far away from the faintest sound, but he's also able to detect the difference between a human and a demon from subtle bodily differences. And if he focuses his hearing and listens closely enough, he's basically able to hear the thoughts of someone near him. This allows him to discern who he can consider trustworthy or not, and it's likely a skill that he picked up after his life of having so many people abuse his trust. Along with this, thanks to his hearing ability, he's also able to have absolute pitch, or perfect pitch, which makes him really good at musical instruments. Though, ironically, even though Zenitsu is very good at hearing, he can't actually understand his own messenger bird, which is one of the only non-crows among messenger crows, a tiny little sparrow named Ukogi, who is nicknamed Shintaro by Zenitsu. And much like most things in Kimetsu no Yaiba, this bird likely represents something in Japanese mythos, specifically the tongue-cut sparrow. Given that Ukogi has no ability to speak to their master, they could be considered tongue-cut. And the tongue-cut sparrow is a story that matches up great with Zenitsu as a character, as the story of the tongue-cut sparrow is that of an old woodcutter and his wife. The woodcutter one day finds an injured sparrow. He helps it and takes it into his care, nursing it back to health. Though, while away, his wife is tasked with taking care of the sparrow. But she hated it. She grew jealous of it from taking her husband's attention away from her. So, she refused to feed it, causing the bird to grow hungry and breaking into their starch. The bird then consumed it all, enraging the wife, causing her to cut the bird's tongue out. This made the bird flee back into the woods, and once the woodcutter learned about this, he took some extra food and went searching for the bird. He found it soon, and offered it not only food, but he danced for the bird in forgiveness. The sparrow, in return for this generous offer, gave the man one of two baskets, a small basket or a large basket, telling the old man to take whatever basket he so desired. But it was important that he did not open it until he got home. The man took the smaller basket as he thought it would be the easiest to carry back home, and once he returned and opened it, he found it full of gold and gems. And once his wife learned about that, she tracked down the bird, stole the large basket, and not yielding the bird's own warning, the wife opened the basket in the middle of the woods and found it full of poisonous snakes, which bit and killed her. The story of the tongue-cut sparrow is that of a cautionary tale against greed and jealousy, and elevates qualities such as goodwill and friendship, which every detail seems to have been reused in some way for Zenitsu's own character. Not only starting with the obvious that he has a sparrow messenger, but his wife is the source of all of his problems, and of course, the attack forged through the friendship and bond Zenitsu made with Tanjiro and Inosuke, defeating Kaigaku, who is a person who fell to becoming a demon due to his greed for power and his jealousy against Zenitsu, is a perfect capstone on all the references to the tongue-cut sparrow. Zenitsu is a person who, despite all the fear and sadness that he has to deal with, is able to stand up for what he believes in when he needs to. He's a god among men who cloaks himself in a facade of cowardice, and is quite possibly one of the most glorious characters in all of Kimetsu no Yaiba. Growing from someone who is viewed as weak for only knowing a single attack, to a complete master of his craft because of how he honed his skills at a single move. Because as they say, you should not fear the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once. You should fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to feel pleasure at the speed of lightning, well, you can do so first by heading to buyshimonetta.com to pick yourself up a copy of Shimonetta, A Boring World Where the Concept of Dirty Jokes Doesn't Exist.